You might not realize it, but constantly pleasing others can slowly destroy your true self. Every time you say yes when you mean no, swallow your anger to avoid conflict, or sacrifice your own needs to keep others happy, you chip away at your identity. This pattern may feel generous or selfless on the surface, but a harsh truth lies beneath. It isn't genuine altruism, it's self-abandonment. In trying to be the person everyone else wants, you build an invisible prison for yourself, trading authenticity for approval. And the cruelest part is that this self-sabotaging cycle often runs on autopilot, unconsciously shaping your behavior. You enter a room and immediately scan everyone's mood, intuitively sense what they expect, and then morph your words and actions to satisfy them, not out of real desire, but out of need for their acceptance. You crave that nod of approval or inclusion to reassure yourself that you still belong. But this reassurance comes at a very high price. Your time and vital energy, the most precious resources you have, are drained by an endless effort to keep the peace. Your own dreams and desires get pushed to last place, suffocated under the weight of others' expectations. Psychologist Carl Jung had a name for this phenomenon of living behind a socially acceptable mask. He called it identification with the persona. It means confusing the mask you present to the world with your true self. The more you live for others' approval, the more distant you become from who you really are, and the more your inner resentment and exhaustion grow. In this outline, we will explore the hidden psychological forces that keep you stuck in this people-pleasing trap, drawing on Jung's insights as well as those of Alfred Adler, the basis of the courage to be disliked. Most importantly, we'll discuss how to break the cycle, how to strip off that persona mask and begin the journey toward your true self. It won't be easy. It requires confronting deep fears and uncomfortable emotions you've avoided for years. But if you find the courage to face them, you can reclaim something far more valuable than the fleeting approval of others. Your inner freedom that we often think of people-pleasing as something noble, an act of kindness or selflessness. But in reality, it's a form of self-abandonment. Every time you say yes when you mean no, you dig a little deeper into your own prison. This cycle, though unconscious, is quietly draining your energy and erasing your true self. This is not altruism. This is self-sacrifice at the expense of your soul. Carl Jung called this phenomenon identification with the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted by others. The more you identify with this mask, the further you move away from your true self. And the painful irony is, the more you please others, the more resentment and exhaustion you accumulate within. So why do we keep doing this? Let's unpack this psychological trap. At a young age, you were likely taught that in order to be loved, you had to please others. This behavior started as a survival mechanism, and over time, it became ingrained in your identity. You learned that being helpful, agreeable, and unselfish earned you approval, affection, and inclusion. So, you kept giving, overextending, and wearing a smile even when inside you felt worn out. But this is where the persona begins. The persona is the mask you wear to navigate the expectations of society, your family, and even your friends. Carl Jung said, "The persona is that which in reality one is not, but which oneself as well as others think one is." Essentially, it's a role you play to meet the external world's demands, but it's not who you truly are. The persona is necessary for social navigation, but the problem arises when we become too attached to it. We get so used to pleasing that we forget how to say no, how to assert our own boundaries, or how to prioritize our needs. The more we live for others' approval, the more distant we become from our authentic self, and that's when the trouble begins. You might start feeling empty, frustrated, and disconnected. The truth is, no one can sustain this mask without paying a psychological cost. Depression, anxiety, resentment, these are all symptoms of the persona trap. But the persona isn't the only psychological force at play. Beneath the mask lies the shadow, those parts of ourselves we repress, deny, or are ashamed of. Jung described the shadow as everything we hide from the world: our anger, selfishness, impatience, and even our legitimate needs. Repressing these parts leads to emotional dysfunction and makes us vulnerable to unhealthy coping mechanisms like people-pleasing. Why do we keep pleasing even when we know it's not good for us? Because the shadow holds all the unacceptable parts of us, and when we suppress those feelings, they don't disappear. They accumulate and influence us unconsciously. The more we try to repress the authentic emotions like frustration, anger, or the need to set boundaries, the more we lose touch with our true selves. Jung said, "What you resist persists." When you continuously please others, you avoid facing your shadow. The unconscious mind shields you from difficult emotions by pushing them into the shadow. The fear of rejection is a direct result of this. You fear that if you show your true self, with all its imperfections, you will no longer be accepted. But this is a lie. Accepting your shadow is the first step toward true authenticity and freedom. You were not born to please everyone, but at some point in your life you learned that you had to. Often this conditioning traces back to childhood. Perhaps as a child you discovered that your authentic emotions, anger, sadness, defiance, were unwelcome or too much for your caregivers. You might have received love only when you were well-behaved, quiet, polite, or pleasing. In other words, you were taught, implicitly or explicitly, that love was conditional. If you are pleasant and don't cause problems, then you will be accepted. To avoid punishment or rejection, you became the good child, helpful, agreeable, and self-sacrificing. This was initially a coping mechanism to feel safe and loved, but over time it solidified into a personality trap, an ingrained pattern of putting others first and suppressing your own needs. This is the cradle of what we can call an invisible cycle of self-sacrifice. Once this pattern took root, you began to operate on constant high alert for other people's moods and demands. Unconsciously, you became an expert at reading the room, noticing a frown, a sigh, a tense silence, and immediately adjusting your behavior to smooth things over. You'd offer help before anyone even asked, flash a conciliatory smile at the first hint of tension, or say, "It's fine, I don't mind," even when it cost you dearly. All this happens automatically because, at a deep level, you associate approval with emotional safety. Being criticized, rejected, or seen as a disappointment makes something inside you panic. If others don't like me, I might not belong. And the fear of not belonging is one of the deepest human fears. Psychologist Alfred Adler noted that every human has a fundamental desire to belong and feel significant in a social group. alfredadler.edu. We are social creatures, and as children, belonging literally equates to survival. We depend on others to take care of us. This is why being isolated or shunned can feel so devastating. It strikes at our core need for connection. Why is it so hard to change this people-pleasing pattern, even once you recognize it's harming you? Why do you still feel compelled to be agreeable and nice, despite the fatigue and resentment inside? The answer lies in a psychological mask you have worn for so long that you've come to mistake it for your true face. In Jungian psychology, this mask is called the persona, the social face you show to the world. We all have personas. They serve as a kind of buffer between our inner self and society's expectations. The persona isn't inherently bad. It's often necessary to have a polite, public face in order to navigate social life. The danger, however, comes when you identify too strongly with this mask, forgetting that it's a role you play and not who you truly are. Carl Jung described the persona as a complicated system of relations between individual consciousness and society. Essentially, a compromise between who you are and what the world expects. It typically forms as we grow up and learn that certain behaviors bring social rewards, approval, praise, while others bring punishment or rejection. In your case, You likely discovered that being helpful, easygoing, and self-effacing earned you praise and inclusion. On the other hand, expressing anger, disagreement, or personal needs might have led to criticism. Don't be selfish, don't make trouble, or even emotional withdrawal by those around you. Over time, and quite unconsciously, you constructed a persona of the good person, ever reliable, selfless, strong, and always ready to help. Each compliment or thank you received for being this way reinforced the idea that this is who you should be. Each rejection or conflict that arose when you tried to assert yourself taught you that your real feelings were bad and must be hidden. Eventually, the mask fused with your face. You came to believe that this pleasing persona was your identity. The deepest fear driving this people-pleasing behavior is the fear of rejection. From early childhood, belonging was a matter of survival. If you weren't accepted by your family or community, your emotional survival was at risk. Alfred Adler, a prominent psychologist, explained that humans are driven by a fundamental desire to belong. But what happens when this need for acceptance distorts our behavior? We become prisoners to the constant need for approval. In The Courage to be Disliked, Ichiro Kishimi and Fumite Koga explore this very idea. Living to meet others' expectations turns us into prisoners of our own anxiety. It's a never-ending chase for approval that leaves us feeling more and more empty. Kishimi and Koga teach us that true freedom comes from detaching our self-worth from external validation. Only when we stop seeking approval can we begin to live authentically and pursue our own desires. But detaching from this cycle requires confronting the deeply rooted fear that if we don't please everyone, we will be rejected, alone, and abandoned. How do we break this cycle? Jung's concept of individuation offers the answer. Individuation is the process of integrating the shadow with the persona, bringing the hidden parts of ourselves into consciousness and accepting them as part of who we truly are. It's about becoming whole, no longer hiding behind a mask to please others. This path is not easy. It requires confronting the discomfort of saying no, the guilt of disappointing others, and the fear of rejection. But the reward is far greater than the short-term relief you get from people-pleasing. Individuation allows you to reconnect with your authentic self, to live freely, and to make choices based on your values, not on others' expectations. To start, you must acknowledge the parts of yourself that you've suppressed. Feel the anger that you've been hiding, embrace your selfish desires, and assert your boundaries. The key is to stop seeing these emotions as bad or unacceptable. They are simply parts of being human. As you accept these shadow aspects, they lose their power to control you. You no longer fear rejection because your worth is no longer tied to others' opinions. Practical strategies to break free. The conscious pause. The next time someone makes a request, take a moment to pause before responding. Breathe. Feel the discomfort of saying no. Acknowledge that it's okay to feel guilt or fear, but those feelings don't define you. Observe them without reacting. This brief moment of awareness helps break the automatic cycle of people-pleasing. Practice saying no. Start small. Begin with low-risk situations. Maybe it's turning down an invitation or asking for time for yourself. Each small no strengthens your ability to say it in bigger moments. Trust yourself. Reevaluate your relationships. Take a hard look at your relationships. Are you constantly giving more than you're receiving? Do you feel drained after spending time with certain people? Identify relationships that rely on your self-sacrifice and take a step back. Surround yourself with those who respect your boundaries. Clear communication. Practice setting boundaries directly. Instead of over-explaining or justifying, say, "I can't do that right now," or that doesn't work for me. The more you practice, the more comfortable it will become. Breaking free from the people-pleasing cycle requires courage. The courage to confront your shadow, to set boundaries, and to live authentically, even if it means disappointing others. But remember, when you honor your true self, you not only reclaim your freedom, but you also build more meaningful, genuine relationships. You begin to attract people who appreciate the real you, not just the mask. As Jung wisely put it, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. And that journey of becoming starts with saying no, confronting your shadow, and living according to your values. It won't be easy, but it's the most worthwhile journey you'll ever take. If you feel ready to take that first step toward living authentically, start today. Let go of the persona and make space for your true self to emerge. And remember, this is just the beginning of your journey. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep embracing the freedom that comes with authenticity. If this video resonated with you, hit the subscribe button and share your thoughts in the comments. What part of this message spoke to you most? What step will you take to stop pleasing and start living for yourself? Share your journey and let's continue to grow together. See you in the next video.